This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Brigari Financial. And we're going to talk about getting it to and through retirement as we always do. And first of all, Logan, good to be back with you.
Yeah, Ron, great to be back on the show. And as I always am, I'm ready to talk about some retirement education.
Oh, yeah, we got lots of good things to talk about today. Just wait for that. But first, let me tell everybody your phone number so they can get in touch and have a one-on-one conversation with you, which is what we want everybody to do. It's a service that you offer to everybody out there who listens to the show. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is a very important phone number, and you'll be happy if you give it a ring. 888-823-PLAN. You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler that's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. Hey, let's get started today with kind of a crazy story. I wonder if you saw this about a man in Georgia who's facing charges after allegedly stealing his neighbor's 8x10 front porch. Now, I know you've heard of porch pirates, and that's usually used to refer to people who steal packages off somebody's porch, but it seems to have a different meaning in this situation. He stole the whole darn porch.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I was waiting to hear what you were going to say about he stole, and I was thinking, what did he steal? Did not think it would be the whole porch. That's probably the first time I've heard that, but it would probably be pretty hard to... I'd imagine thered be a lot going into that of how to get that out of there, and I guess that proves people will probably take just about anything at this point, huh?
Well, first of all, the people must have been gone for a long time.
Yeah, it can't be quick,
and not close to any neighbors either, because it would have taken some time and some work to get the porch off, I would think.
Yeah.
What do you do with it after you steal a porch?
Well, I'm trying to think if I'm sitting, and you could put yourself in this situation, and the same with everybody listening. If I was sitting on my front, looking out my front window, having a cup of coffee in the morning, I saw someone out there trying to take a porch, I'd probably just think they're working on it. I wouldn't even think they were stealing it.
It's just crazy. So, hey, let's talk about something equally crazy. Sometimes, you remember the show The Blacklist?
I do. It
was all about Raymond Reddington. And James Spader's the star of that show. Mm-hmm. It was a big hit on NBC and recently aired its finale after 10 seasons on the air. So I thought today we might take a few quotes from main character Raymond Reddington and see if we can learn something from those, turn them into retirement planning wisdom. He said, at one point, let me put your mind at ease. I am never telling you everything. Is there anything you can get from that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I will have to give full disclosure here. I've definitely watched the show, but I have not watched it religiously, or I didn't finish all of it. But definitely could see this coming from him on that. I would say when you relate this to retirement planning, Ron, I would say, some people put this intense pressure on themselves to learn everything they can about the financial world because they think they're supposed to know every single thing about retirement or about the overall financial world. But even if it's your career, for some people, it's hard for them to understand it all, right? There's so much that goes into it. So take some of that pressure off yourself and realize that you probably don't need to know every single thing about the overall financial world. But, that's what you're supposed to be leaning on your advisor for and their team to make sure that they're helping giving you the education and the guidance, and also making sure that you feel comfortable and you're getting the right guidance that's right for your situation. Because, again, it's a lot to learn. And I have people that will get ready for retirement, and they're like, hey, I'm retiring in 6 months or a year. And they're trying to take in this, elephant of a food there all at one time. And it's very, very hard for many people to process all that and get overwhelmed. And that's why you really want to rely on a good team to make sure that they're giving you the guidance that you need to feel confident about whatever it is you're looking forward to in retirement.
Oh, absolutely. Another quote here from Raymond Reddington: every cause has more than one effect. Boy, that's certainly true.
Wow, that is very true. That's a great way to put that. I'm going to use that one. I would say basically when you look at any financial move you probably make, right, the cause is going to have multiple consequences or effects, right? So both good and bad in some cases, right? You look at like tax planning, for example, Ron. You look at current tax implications might affect, future tax implications, right?
Yep.
You could defer taxes, which means it helps you right now, so it's a great thing now. But down the road, it doesn't necessarily help the long-term tax picture, right? So, and same vice versa. And then when you look at For example, investments, right? Potential for liquidity and short-term liquidity is nice, but it might have an effect on the long-term growth of something. So there's so many different give and gets inside of a retirement plan, and they all do kind of have a domino effect where if you do this one over here on the left, it might affect that one in the middle or on the right. So that's why when you're looking at your overall financial plan, you want to look at your income plan, your investment plan, your tax plan, and your legacy and estate plan, and making sure that you're doing the best you can to help make sure that you're not hurting one of those more than the other, or just pushing the domino onto the other one.
Now, wait a second. You said so many different give and gets. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah. Well, I like to make things up sometimes, but
Oh, man. Thank you very much. I just learned something. Something else Raymond Reddington said, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. My goodness, that's deep.
That is pretty deep, right? I guess the way I would kind of interpret this would be, stop worrying about how your financial picture compares to other people, right? You might be comparing yourself to a bunch of blind people that, might not be very in tune with their financial picture, which is going to make you feel like a king, right? It's going to make you feel like you're doing way better than you might actually be doing. Or for some of us out there, we compare ourselves to a bunch of giants or maybe a bunch of kings, and it makes us feel probably about as small as we'd probably want to feel, right?
Yeah.
So I would say what I always tell clients, you don't want to focus on what your neighbor's got or what your brother-in-law's got. I hear that all the time. Oh, my brother-in-law and my sister, they're really wealthy, right? And I'll never be like them. So they told me to do this, that, or the other thing, right? And that's all great. Good for them. Glad they're doing well. But you want to focus on what your personal goals are, what your construction of the plan might look like, and what's going to help you accomplish your goals, not somebody else's.
We're talking about James Spader's character in The Blacklist, Raymond Reddington. We'll get back to that in just a second. You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Once again, Logan's number, if you'd like to get in touch and have a conversation about The Blacklist or whatever you want to talk about, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Now, back to more give and gets. He said one time, just because you've been bumped up to first chair in the orchestra doesn't mean that you can compose a symphony. Do you find any wisdom in that quote?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I always look at, when you go golfing or whatever, right, or you're out with your buddies or your friends or whoever, and you have sometimes people will look at making nice money by picking maybe a good stock or two, right? And that's all they want to tell you about, which is, of course, great news for them, right? But, actually it's not that great if they really don't know how to look at that overall financial plan, right? They're going to look at themselves like, I'm an expert stock picker. This is very easy. And we saw a lot of this during, 2019, 2020, towards after the COVID pandemic kind of bounced back there in the markets, all the way through probably 2021. And obviously many decades before that, we've had people that you can do well at a few things during good markets. But it doesn't necessarily mean you understand taxes. It doesn't necessarily mean you understand income planning or estate planning. Heck, it doesn't really even mean you understand the stock market, right? We could all put money into a Keno machine and get lucky every once in a while, right? So it's really important that you don't necessarily crown yourself as the expert there. And most financial planners will actually tell you, investment returns and all that are great, but a lot of it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't help support the plan and help keep the overall financial plan in tune for the long-term road.
As we talk more and more about these Raymond Reddington quotes, one thing I've learned is there were some really good writers on that show, The Blacklist.
Yeah, it definitely. I'm going to write down some of these quotes.
They did a good job making this guy a real character for sure. If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. I think I've heard a variation of that, but not exactly that.
No, it's got a nice little spin on it there, right?
Yeah.
But I guess what I would say is you could probably spend all day wishing that you had done something different with your money in the past. Maybe you spent less, maybe you saved more aggressively, maybe you invested in something different, etc. Right? We can go on all day about that. But wishing the past was different doesn't really change anything, right? We could all wish we would have done this, that, or the other thing, but again, it doesn't have any impact on today. Stop living in the past. I always tell clients and people I talk with about financial planning is you always want to make sure you're seizing the day and making the decisions that benefit you today moving forward, right? And so that's really what our firm's all about. Clients will come in and tell us, hey, I shouldn't have bought this, or I shouldn't have used this mutual fund, or maybe I should have saved more. Do I even have enough to retire, right? And that's really where they come in, and most of our focus isn't really on what we've done in the past, right? We do want to have an understanding of where you've been, what your understanding of money is, what your overall goals are. But now we're building a plan moving forward, right? And so a lot of our clients, as we always talk about in the show, are typically approaching retirement or in retirement. They're probably 55 years or older, and they're looking for a team to help put them in the best situation they can to help accomplish their retirement goals. So if you're one of those people out there and getting close to retirement and you think it might be time for you to get a retirement checkup and see, how on track are you for your upcoming retirement or current retirement, definitely think you'll gain a lot of value by coming in for our discovery meeting where you could sit one-on-one with myself, whether it's in one of our offices or via Zoom, and we could spend about an hour together getting to know each other, introducing yourself to us as well as our firm to you, and seeing if we might be a good fit to help transition you to and through retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. But you can remember it easily by using the word plan. We all need one. We all need one that is unique to our situation. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call for Regary Financial. 2 convenient offices in Southern California, one in Hemet, one in Redlands. And of course, Logan will be glad to sit down and talk with you about your situation in what we call a discovery visit, kind of a getting to know you session. Logan's number one more time is 888-823-PLAN. That is good for a conversation that is absolutely free and obligation free as well. So why would you not take advantage of it? We'll have more coming up in just a moment on the Financial Beat. I'm Rod Stutz, along with Logan Sadler. We'll be right back.
Are you worried about whether you're ready for retirement? Logan Sadler and the team at Regary Financial can help. Just text the word advice to 21,000 to take Regary Financial's free retirement roadmap checkup. Text the word advice to 21,000 and we'll send you a link to all of our free resources. From there, you can click on the button for the retirement roadmap checkup. You'll just have to answer a few questions and then you can see how prepared you are for retirement. This is a great starting point for people just starting to think about retirement. Text the word advice to 21,000 to get your free retirement roadmap checkup today. That's the word advice to 21000.
Hi, I'm a cleverly devised personification of Wall Street. I'm one wild roller coaster ride away from wreaking havoc on your investments, and I love to mess with your emotions. If you're not properly diversified, you can bet I'll keep you up all night thinking about me. If you want to keep me off your mind, you really need a trusted advisor who'll look after your best interests. You also need a custom-designed financial plan that'll protect you from market volatility. Otherwise, when I take a plunge, I'll send you scrambling through your filing cabinet, hoping you were well prepared. Don't wait for turmoil to hit.
In Southern California, call Logan Sadler and the Regary Financial Team at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
It's getting to know you time.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regary Financial. Ron Stutz here. And Logan, I want to ask you a question that you might consider to be a ridiculous question. It's certainly a dark one. If you ever find yourself up for execution, and I don't think you ever will, but
I don't plan on it.
If you ever did find yourself up for execution, what would you request for your last meal?
You know, out of all the questions you've ever asked me on this Getting to Know You, this might actually be the easiest, just because I'm a foodie. I love food. So,
yeah.
2 answers. One is it would be either I love pizza, so pizza would be up there. If it's and it depends on what kind. That's why I said I'd pick 2, but pizza would be number 1. Uh-huh. And if pizza wasn't available, the next would be a good tri-tip and potatoes. You know, you can't beat a good piece of meat and some potatoes.
That sounds good to me. Now, what about? Let me ask you another question, a follow-up question here about the pizza. Are you in favor of pineapple on pizzas?
No. I'm pretty strictly pepperoni only or cheese, but I'll throw in, every once in a while like a barbecue chicken pizza or a margarita pizza, but no pineapple.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that because that seems like a very popular question going around, Hawaiian pizza, pineapple and ham, whatever.
I don't know about it, man. It's just not for me, So on that day, if there was pineapple on the pizza, I'd go with the steak and potatoes.
That sounds good to me. Hey, Listen, thanks a lot. Now you know Logan Sadler a little bit better. Our Getting to Know You segment. You're listening to the Financial Beat right here on the radio. Thanks for being here.
Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial, and he has his own YouTube channel. Search for The Financial Beat on YouTube, and you can find over 100 videos from Logan about different retirement planning topics. For example, Logan has a video called How Much Should You Have Saved for Retirement by Age 60? It's a 5-minute video where Logan will break down what your savings goals should be as you prepare for retirement. Check out that video and over 100 more on The Financial Beat YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for The Financial Beat.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz. He's Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Regary Financial is an outstanding firm that's been around for a very long time, and they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists as well, to help offer you well-rounded guidance in everything related to your money and your retirement. Logan Sadler, of course, offers a free discovery meeting, getting to know you visit. You get to know him, he gets to know you. It's not going to cost you anything at all, and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation to do anything after that. Number to call to set that up is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That number is for a discovery visit with Logan, 888-823-PLAN. Hey, Logan, one of the things that we should mention to people who listen to the radio show is that there are other ways to get more information from you. And let's start with the YouTube channel. You got lots of helpful YouTube videos out there.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of traction over that way because obviously, if you're like most of us, right, we tend to go to YouTube to get some ideas or some some visions of what we were looking to do and whatever it might be. And so we created a YouTube channel called the Financial Beat YouTube channel. So head over to YouTube, type in the Financial Beat, and you'll see there's a bunch of videos that we upload there weekly. We do one a week, and they're all little short 5 to 10 minute videos on retirement planning. Some of them are, what is the best age to retire? The 4 questions you should be asking yourself about retirement. Plenty of them are on Social Security and other retirement planning topics that a lot of you might find interesting. So head over there, click the Financial Beat, and go ahead and click subscribe and follow along.
Interesting that you mentioned that conversation that you need to have about exactly when you're going to retire. And we're going to talk about that in just a second here. But I'm related to a famous musician. I love Louis Armstrong, old Satchmo. And he once said that musicians don't retire. They stop when there's no more music in them. I think, I know a lot of musicians, most of them not so famous, but, that's pretty much true. I mean, they're going to probably play as long as they physically can.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you look at a lot of the bands that are still around nowadays, like, the Rolling Stones and some of these bands have just been around forever, right? It's crazy. Yeah. But I always wonder, how do they keep having the ones that keep writing new songs? How do you write songs for 40 or 50 years? It's just amazing you don't run out of words.
Yeah. And I think really that we all need to be concerned about the kind of world we're going to leave for Keith Richards after we're all gone.
Yeah, he's going to outlive everybody.
That guy's never going to die. And let's talk about retiring today. If you're recently retired or approaching retirement age, get really close to it, the world is a much different place than it was when your parents walked away from a paycheck. Well, let's talk about how things are different now. First of all, it is okay. We see it all the time. A lot of people working well beyond the age of 65, and that used to be not mandatory, but that used to be the customary retirement age.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's funny when you tell some people, oh yeah, if we could get you to 65, some people go, what, 65, right? I'm 60, that's 5 years away. I don't know, previous generations had a fairly standard retirement age, and it was, somewhat rare for someone to work past 65, right, in many cases. Many people in today's society feel that there's really a negative stigma to maybe working beyond 65 or 66, and somehow see it maybe as like a sign of failure or something like that, right? But there's really nothing wrong with working past the age of 65, and especially for a few reasons, right? One is if you love your job and you love your work, right? I've seen people where they just really are passionate about where they're at and they think they could do it for another few more years and they want to do it for a few more years. The other reason I would say is, what if you're in a situation where if you retired now, it's nothing of what you envisioned for retirement, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to travel, you want to see your grandkids, you want to go play golf or join clubs or do whatever it is you want to do, if you're not going to have the income that you're going to need to do that, a lot of us would rather just work another year or two to get us maybe to where it might be a little bit more possible, right? So understanding where you stack up and understanding where I had a client literally just the other day who just came on board with our firm and he worked till 69, right? And he's now going to be able to retire. His Social Security was built up. He got on a really good savings plan and he's really drastically changed his, vision of what retirement looks like from 65 to 69. And he's going to be able to enjoy everything he wants to do. Yes, he's a few years older, but he's going to be able to do what it is he wants to do and how he envisioned it and not really have that concern that he had before of, I'm going to retire and have to just stay at home, right? So just kind of understanding where you stack up and when you can retire is really dependent on what your situation looks like.
A lot of people just kind of naturally assume that after they retire, their lifestyle is going to be a lot less costly than it is while they're working, but being retired might be more expensive than working.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of our clients, it is, right? I mean, I think most in the 90s, most financial advisors and most of the charts and books you read about that decade or that time frame when they were getting ready to retire, you saw pretty much 20% decrease in clients' spending was kind of what the rule of thumb might be there when they're no longer working, right? Because, you're going to retire, you'll be in a lower tax bracket, things will be a little bit easier, right? But in retirement today, that carries a much higher price tag, I would say, and in large part because of the increase in healthcare cost, not to mention more money spent on fitness, nutrition, maybe staying healthy and active probably a lot longer than other generations, right? So if you kind of look at all those other things involved, as well as maybe some pretty extravagant travel plans, right, that might have maybe expensive hobbies and things like that, we see expenses typically be a little bit higher than other generations. And the bottom line is that the reality of today's retiree is that there's no guarantee that expenses will decrease in retirement, right? I've seen some clients where their expenses stay pretty much the same, if not go up, right? Just depending on what type of scenario they're looking at in retirement. So it's very important to kind of understand, where do you line up? If you make $100,000 a year currently, if you're in retirement, if you made the traditional, 70% of that, so let's say you made $70,000 a year, is that going to be able to support your lifestyle and be able to do the things you want to do? For some of you, yes, the answer is yes, right? For some of you, the answer might be, no, I might need $90,000 a year to be able to support the lifestyle I want. So it's very important to understand where you line up in that, understanding how you envision your retirement, and also, what type of planning techniques and tools you're going to put into your retirement plan to get you where you want to go.
If you want to get in touch with Regary Financial in Southern California, then call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler, the person you hear on this show every single week. Retirees today often have a lot more problems to juggle than previous generations of retirees. It used to be that, people would say, I'm going to retire, and I'm just going to take it easy and not going to worry about a thing. These days, you may have a lot to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, in addition to continuously, ballooning basic healthcare expenses for themselves, right? I mean, today's retiree has to worry about the possibility of nursing homes or assisted livings. Those types of needs are often providing maybe financial help. I've seen this a lot to their adult children who are struggling financially. I have many of our clients where they're 55, 60, 65, and they might have a 20, 30, or 40-year-old living with them, right? Or they're still supporting them.
That's right.
So, right, that hits home for a lot of you out there listening. And so it's something where, in fact, most baby boomers are living off of their own savings instead of pensions and things like that as well, right? So the retirement planning picture has definitely gotten a little bit more complicated than most people might have envisioned it as they're getting closer to it, or maybe they just started.
Yeah, they still may be on your phone plan, or
Oh yeah, I see clients still paying they're paying their kids' student loans, or they're paying their rent, or helping the grandkids out, or whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of expenses we might we might see there, and it's definitely could fluctuate and change from household to household.
And even in some extreme cases, you got people who are retiring, let's say at 70, and they may have 95-year-old parents these days. People are living for so much longer. And that leads me to my next question here. Retirement portfolios today, and I know you work on this all the time, they need to be designed to fund expenses for 30 years or maybe even more. And some people are in retirement longer than they were in the workplace.
Yeah, people laugh when we say that, right? But it is crazy because it does happen. I mean, planning for retirement was a lot easier back in the day when you retired at 65 and life expectancy was 73, right? You both had Social Security, a pension to provide some income, probably had some savings in the bank accounts that were earning, 5, 6, 7, 8% back in those days. And it was a very real possibility of that working. Now there's a very real possibility of people living much longer than 73. I mean, heck, even well into their 90s, many people, right? So It's one of those things where you really have to make sure that you have a retirement plan, like you had said, Ron, that's built to last maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 plus years into retirement, and making sure that you know that the plan is going to account for, rising interest rates, falling interest rates, inflation, stock market volatility, tax changes. I mean, all of these things that are going to need to be planned out in your retirement, or at least have some, some way of protection in there against all of these things, or at least some of them, to help get you those 30 years you might need in retirement. Because I could probably guarantee for a lot of you out there listening, one of your largest fears or biggest fears of retirement is running out of money, right? It is still one of the largest concerns for most retirees that come into our office, and there's ways to help plan and prepare to make sure that you're doing the best job possible to try to avoid that at all costs. And that all starts with a solid retirement plan. And of course, listen to the show, you're going to get plenty of tips and some tricks along the way about some ways that might help your situation. Or you can go ahead and call the number and come in. If you're one of those people, maybe you're approaching retirement and you're wondering, is there different things you should be doing to get yourself on track to really get a full, clear picture of what it is you want in retirement, how realistic it is, and if there's ways that you could be enhancing your current retirement portfolio and your current plan. That's why we offer that complimentary discovery meeting where you can come in and sit down with me at one of our offices or jump on a Zoom call and see if our firm's a good fit to help get you to and through retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call for Regary Financial. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer. And at Regary, they work with 3 different generations of folks with their money. Logan, of course, certainly does and specializes in getting people to and through retirement. So he's certainly helped hundreds of families in having a successful lifestyle, I would say, the kind of lifestyle they've always wanted in their retirement years. And you can do that too if you reach out with a phone call, 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call. Cost-free, obligation-free conversation, a discovery visit, 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat, and we'll be right back with more after this quick timeout.
Did you know music is good for the heart? A study at a university in Italy showed that music helps promote a better cardiovascular system. But we also know that a sound financial plan is good for peace of mind. Keep listening to the Financial Beat so we can help you find a plan that both your head and your heart can agree on.
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. And you can get in touch with Regary if you call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. As we mentioned earlier in the show, we appreciate you listening to the radio show. We want to remind you that you can also check out all the podcasts that are available for old shows you may have missed. And you can also go to YouTube and find Logan Sadler's very helpful videos there. And we certainly do like the fact that you decided to join us for the radio show today. Appreciate your being here. 888-823-PLAN. Logan, as I mentioned before, has great partnerships with everybody related to your money. I mean, it's just kind of a one-stop shop because it's not just about investments and that sort of thing, but he always takes into account your lifestyle and your hopes and dreams, the kinds of things that you want for your retirement lifestyle. And you can have a discovery meeting and talk about all that. Won't cost you anything. 888-823-PLAN. Look, and I got kind of an off-the-wall question here for you, but, they say that everybody has a doppelganger out there, somebody who they look like or who looks like you, and I'm just curious to know, who's your celebrity look-alike? Do you have one?
It's funny. It's hard to answer those, right? Because you don't really see yourself looking like anybody in most cases.
Yeah.
It's typically somebody else that said, hey, you kind of look like this guy, right? So I've heard, throughout the years, many different people, I guess. But I'd say the two most common I always hear is Paul Walker when I had a little more hair. And then I would say Danny Way, which many of you might not know who that is, but he's a skateboarder dude, and I get those two probably most common, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if I agree with that. The skateboard guy, I think, yeah. Paul Walker, I don't know. I get Bob Seger sometimes.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's hard because you look at yourself, you go, I don't think I look like that, but hey, who knows?
Exactly. So, hey, if you can look in the mirror and if you're satisfied with what you got, that's cool. Sometimes it's
exactly. You got to be happy with what you see in the mirror.
Yeah. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, "Whoa, my goodness, what happened?" Well, we're all getting older, hopefully wiser. There's an old quote that says, "Age is the price of wisdom." Well, let's talk about how that applies to the financial world. How do you see your clients at Regary Financial changing their perspectives about what money and wealth mean to them as they get older?
Yeah, that's a really great question, right? I think some people, their perspectives about money do change because they understand that when you're working, your livelihood is your paycheck, right? And so it's easy as long as you keep going to work, you keep getting a paycheck, and you get to live the life you want. But it comes to a certain point where, for most of us, if you want to leave that job, you're looking for that next paycheck, right? So it means you need some sort of wealth built, or you need some sort of income streams like pensions or Social Security or whatever it is to help now sustain the lifestyle. So I would say you do see a changing of habits where people typically around 50 years old, 55 years old, where money and wealth tend to mean a little bit different things to them, maybe even more and more important as they're getting older because they now realize that they need that to help create the lifeline. And others, money doesn't mean as much to them as they get older, right? It's more about experiences and spending time with the family and your loved ones and things like that, to where that is the wealth that you get, right? That is the fulfillment you get. So definitely you see kind of those two channels, I would say, Ron, on that question.
There are a lot of there is a song I'm thinking about, "Ooh La La" by the Faces. It's like I wish all the things I knew that I know now, I wish I had known when I was younger. That's not exactly the right wording, but pretty much like that. But
yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that you consistently hear people say that they wish they'd known earlier or wish they'd done differently when they were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I hear, most commonly I would say you hear, I wish I would have saved more. I wish I would have started earlier. I wish I would have listened to my grandfather or my mother or my friend or whoever it was to start, and it's funny because we work with a lot of people that work at Costco, right, or Edison or Kaiser. We work with a lot of these different groups, and so, sometimes their friends or coworkers might be much further ahead than they are, right? And they're like, you know what? My boss told me when I first started to put 10% of my paycheck away, right? And I didn't start for 10 years, right? Or whatever it is, right? So you hear that a lot where most people say they wish they would have started things when they were younger or just took things a little more serious.
Yeah, that makes sense. As people approach retirement, do you find that they worry about financial issues more or less than they did when they were younger? And I think I know the answer to that question.
I think it's definitely they realize them a little bit more, right? Because now it's when you're 20 years old and you get a job and you say, oh, you better put money away so you can retire. You go, yeah, okay, that's I'll worry about that when I'm older, right? And then when you all of a sudden when you're 60 and you go, oh man, I'm retiring in 2 years. I probably should have started a little earlier. I don't know if I have enough money. What happens if inflation keeps going up, right? All these types of things kind of start to become very, very real fears of, did I save enough money or did I do as good as I could have done? And what's this next 10, 15 years going to look like as all of my friends start to retire, right? All my friends and coworkers. So it's one of those things where you definitely see, I would say, things get a little bit more magnified. And I always say, when you're making good money and you're working, you could hide a lot of things, right? You could live a good life and enjoy a lot of things and a lot of experiences. But as you get closer to retirement, once you retire, if you did not do a good job of doing the pre-planning, of putting money away and getting, basically investments and things like that, pensions or whatever it is, built up, you become to a point where you really can't hide those things anymore, right? All of a sudden, it's now time for when you retire, you're going to find out very quickly how well you did, right? And so it's one of those things where it does become a little bit more magnified down the road.
888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about all these things as they relate to you. 888-823-7526. Logan, do you find people changing their opinion about leaving a financial legacy as they get older?
Yeah, I would say there's typically, 3 avenues of that you'll see. And, let's say there's people typically where it's like, I have really just worked my fingers to the bone, really just, grinded for 20, 30, 40 years. And I've built this, empire, or I have $1 million or $5 million to leave behind, or $100,000 to leave behind, depending on your situation. And they'll get to that point and they go, you know what? I don't want to spend a dime of this, right? I really don't want to tap into this. This is to leave to my kids. I would like to leave behind a legacy, right? Nobody left me anything, so I would like to leave behind something. So you see that one avenue, right? And I've seen other people where they get to that same point, but they go, you know what? I've done well. Me and my wife have worked hard, or I've worked hard, or whoever it is. And they say the kids are going to be fine, right? They're doing well. Or maybe I don't have any kids and I would like to enjoy as much of this money as I can, right? And maybe have my last check bounce. We've all heard that one, right? Where they want to really enjoy their nest egg, live a lifestyle they always wanted to live in retirement and not leave behind much. And then there's that other one that's kind of in the middle, right? They'd like to leave some behind, but they'd also like to enjoy it. So you kind of see those 3 avenues, but you definitely see people's opinions maybe drastically change as they get older, whether they didn't really care about it much before and now they're very focused on it, or ones that, really always have wanted to leave a legacy, now finding out it might not be as important to them as living the lifestyle that they wanted to in retirement.
One overriding concern is you need to take care of your own needs first, make sure that you can support yourself and then worry about the other stuff. So, I can see how people change their opinions about all of that. In some cases, the kids are making a lot more money than they ever made. So,
yeah, I have a client where they never made over $100,000 a year, right? Yeah. And they saved and lived off less than they make and made some really good decisions, and they're retiring and they're going to have a pretty decent lifestyle. In retirement, they have over $1 million and they're so excited, and they're at this point where based off what they want to do, they're probably going to be able to do just about anything they want. And it's funny because, like you said, their kid right now, one of them makes like $270,000 a year right now, right? And he's like 35 or whatever it is. So they're like, man, he makes more in a year, right, than I made in probably my first 10 years of working, right? So it is funny how you'll see that sometimes.
Yeah, and I here's another question that should have an obvious answer, I think, based on all the conversations we've had over the years in this show. Mm-hmm. Do you see people changing their opinion about taking risk with money as they get older?
Yeah, I would say majority of the time, yes, right? Of course, there's always those people that maybe they have, we work with a lot of police officers or military or teachers or things like that where they might have a really good pension, so they're not as worried about income. So maybe they'll stay a little bit more moderate or aggressive throughout their retirement years, or maybe at least in the early years. But for most people, when you have $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever it is in your retirement accounts, and you are 60 years old or 55 years old or 65, and you start to see these huge declines in the market, which we could all agree, you don't have to be a forecaster to say that the market goes up and the market goes down, right? And when you see those downturns, you typically see people around that age group that go, wait a minute, I've been through this before. Am I being a little bit too aggressive or unrealistic with where I'm at now, right? I'm going to need some of this money here pretty soon for income. So should I be making adjustments, right? Now, the question is, where does the money go once you make those adjustments? You got insurance products like annuities, you got bonds, you got treasuries, you got a lot of different vehicles to look at, and it's a little bit different for everybody, but you definitely do see people typically, Ron, say, okay, I should definitely start making these adjustments. because I don't want to lose too much at the wrong time.
Yeah, and I know that's one thing that you encourage people to do, and point out the importance of that so many times. There are lots of people out there who've been listening to the show for a long time, Logan, and haven't gotten around to making that all-important phone call. What kind of things do you talk about when you first get together with somebody on Zoom or in one of your offices?
Yeah, the best part about our firm is we have a 3-step process before we ever bring clients on, right? So we have 3 meetings before we ever decide if it's a good time to move forward or not. And the reason we do that, Ron, is because it's very important to understand what is the client trying to accomplish? Do I understand what they're trying to accomplish? Do I know them? As well, do they feel comfortable and know our firm, right? I think that's super important. So at that first meeting when they make that call, really all we talk about is, a little bit about what their family history is. If you're married, do you have kids, all that fun stuff. What do you do for a living, right? How long have you done it? Then we jump into what type of retirement are you looking to accomplish? What are your 3 financial concerns about retirement? What type of investment returns do you think you need to support your retirement goals, right? So a lot of those more in-depth questions just to kind of get an understanding of who it is, what is they're trying to do, and how we can get them to where they're trying to go, and really deciding if our firm is a good fit for them, as well as if they're a good fit for the firm. Because I think the relationship that a financial advisor should have with the clients is really that, right? It should be a relationship to make sure that they're on the same page and making sure that the financial advisor understands what it is they're trying to do to put the best plan to before them. So that's really what we talk about at the first meeting, is a lot about them and a lot about our firm to get to introduce each other. And that's why I always tell clients, sit down, relax. You're not signing any paperwork today. It's just a really good time for us to sit down, spend an hour, and allow us to really understand what it is you're trying to do, as well as show you some of the value and some of the conversations we'll have in that first meeting might open your eyes to a lot of different topics or solutions that you might not have heard before. So if you're getting close to retirement, or if maybe you just started, I definitely think you don't want to miss out on that hour conversation. I think you would gain a lot of value from it.
How would you like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler? Get to know him. He can get to know you. It will be an enjoyable, relaxed conversation. There's no money changing hands. He's not pushing any products off on you, anything like that. No obligation to do anything beyond that either. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call for Regari Financial. Leave your name, your phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the week. Arrange a convenient time to have your conversation with Logan. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and there's more after this.
A good musical playlist has variety. It features a number of different songs that you've come to enjoy over the years from different genres and musicians. Well, what does that have in common with your financial plan? Well, your financial playlist, so to speak, should feature a number of different hits, from your pension to 401ks, maybe to minimizing taxes and creating income for the future. To start building a financial playlist like that, reach out to Logan Sadler and the team at Regari Financial. Call 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
Serenity now! Serenity now! What is that? When my blood pressure gets too high, the man on the tape tells me to say, Serenity now!
Does your financial plan have you constantly needing to calm down? Find your Serenity now and keep listening to The Financial Beat.
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, 2 convenient offices, Redlands and Hemet in Southern California. And his phone number is 888-823-PLAN. We are on the radio every single week talking about getting you to and through retirement. We have a lot more coming up. In fact, we have some questions to answer coming up in just a moment. But let me give you Logan's number, 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. You call that number today and leave you a message with your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back first part of the work week, and then you can arrange a time to have a conversation with Logan, either via Zoom or maybe in one of the offices. 888-823-PLAN. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to have any strings attached at all. 888-823-PLAN. Look, we have great questions every week that come in from our listeners, and some people write in, some people call with these questions, and I know you're always happy to answer them and also to meet new people. First question today is from Chris in French Valley, and Chris says, what's an appropriate fee to pay for investment management? If I just want to let my money ride in the market for several years, how much difference does a manager make?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, this is a very, I would say, delicate question for most people, right? But it really would depend kind of on, we kind of mentioned it there, like you were looking more for like a passive investment style, which typically comes a little bit cheaper. However, I do recommend having some management on it, right? And I would say that whether you went with our firm or another firm, right? I would always tell clients the same thing where if you look at the investments, you could, a lot of people say, buy the S&P 500 and it should do X amount of return over X amount of years, right? Or the Dow or the NASDAQ or whatever it is you're looking for. That is true where they have had pretty decent rate of returns when you look over a period of time. However, I do think you do gain benefit by having a manager on there because there are certain times where different segments of those indexes and things like that might be performing better. And you typically get benefit by having a manager, right? And I always tell people, typically by paying something, you should be gaining a value in return, right? A lot of people don't mind paying a fee or paying for a service or whatever it is if you're getting some type of value in return. And typically, some clients might think it might be better returns or whatever, which in some cases that could happen. But it's also about having that advisor to help coach you and guide you throughout that experience is typically where a lot of the value should be added as well. Now, what you should pay for typical just money management, you'll typically see fees if you go to any of the big brokerage firms or individual advisors, you'll see them anywhere from 1% to about 2%, right? Which 2% would be on the very high side. But typically between 1% to 2%, as well as it depends on how much money you have, right? A lot of advisors will have a break point where they will lower a fee. And you could also go the robo-advisor route, which they'll pay, 0.5 to 0.75 typically. I will say more often than not, I recommend clients using the investment manager rather than the robo because, again, you get a little bit more customized approaches to your investment plan and you have somebody to help kind of bounce those ideas off of. And any type of concerns you might have, you actually have somebody to talk to help make sure you're making those right decisions. But as well as just investment management, you also want to make sure you're looking at a financial planner, right? A lot of advisors will advertise investments, which, yes, that's very important, and that's part of what we do. But also you want to make sure you have a financial planner to make sure, do we need to be contributing more money? Are we on track? Should we be doing a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA? How's your 401k doing, right? All these other things that might be coming up that you're going to need extra guidance on, you want to make sure they're doing that as well. And that's typically where a good advisor could really set themselves apart from just a traditional broker or just a traditional investment manager.
There's so much to it and so much to know, and Logan Sadler does this stuff all the time. And, you may be one of these people who, you try and do it all yourself, but my goodness, why not lean on the experience and the know-how of someone like Logan Sadler? Another question here from Ernie, and Ernie is in Palm Springs. Ernie says, my daughter just had twins, and we're blown away by the cost of daycare that they're facing for two babies. My wife is thinking about retiring a year earlier than planned to take care of the grandchildren instead of letting them pay more than $2,000 a month for childcare. Could I just work a year longer than we had planned to accommodate this, or is it more complicated than that? And first of all, Logan, you know what it means to be a recent parent and everything. Can you imagine that if you had two instead of one?
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of got on my train of thought there. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, it's just so expensive out there for any of the parents out there that have younger kids. Just because wages and everything has gone up. I mean, a lot of the cost of care is very expensive, Ernie. So I feel your pain on that one. One thing I would say is it's something to look at. I have actually had a couple clients that have done something similar to this. And again, what I would say is it always depends on your situation. We got to analyze how much money are we leaving on the table by, you working longer or your wife retiring early. What does the Social Security look like? Pensions? What is the 401k or 457? How much contributions are we putting in there? What does that look like? And how does that really impact things? And again, looking at that from a broad scope of how does it affect the overall plan. And I had a couple clients, actually had 2 this year, where it was like, hey, I get it. Based off your current scenario, it's really not even going to hurt you that bad. It really wouldn't make a difference if you're ready to go. You're in a good situation, you could do it. And I've had a couple clients where it's like, man, it could potentially affect, pension payouts or Social Security. We're 1 year away from the max or whatever it is. So there's a lot of deeper questions inside that we'd have to kind of break apart. But those are some of the things that I'd be looking at if I was your advisor or if I'm you thinking about this to kind of get that covered before pulling the trigger. I always say it's better to understand that beforehand, but it definitely might be something that might be in the realm of possibility if done correctly and everything's looked at.
Got another question here from Catherine in Woodcrest, and this is kind of an interesting question because she doesn't give us a whole lot of details here. She says, I have a room full of various collectibles that I think are probably worth quite a bit of money. How should I factor this into my retirement plans? I have regular retirement savings too. I'm not banking my entire future on this stuff, but it has to be worth something. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, something is only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So you don't have any idea how much this stuff is worth.
Exactly. I hate to say it, but sometimes, right, we might have a baseball card or a watch or a piece of jewelry or something that is worth $1 million to us, but worth $100 to somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I always tell people is whatever type of collectible it is, you typically can get those, appraised and things like that, depending on what it is, to kind of get an idea of what type of value those are worth. But as you had mentioned, Ron, even though if it's worth X amount, you still have to find a buyer for it, someone that's willing to exchange money for goods, right? So I would say, first off, I'd probably say good for you by also having retirement accounts and things like that, which is awesome. But I'd also look and see if you can get those appraised and see kind of what type of value that would look like, as well as how easy are those to sell and exchange for money when the time comes.
Yeah, exactly. Catherine, the number to call if you'd like to have a longer conversation with Logan about all this, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-PLAN. One more question today, and it's a little bit more involved. It's from Jerry in Loma Linda. And Jerry says, I'll be inheriting about $125,000 in an IRA from my mom, who passed away 3 months ago. 3 questions. How do we avoid taxes on this investment? Should we merge it into one of our existing accounts or keep it separate? And finally, what's the best way to invest it? Again, it's $125,000 in an IRA.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for that question. And first off, apologize and condolences there for your mom passing away. Sounds like rather recently, right? A few months. So apologize there. And condolences. So what I would say, first off, what I would tell anybody, right, is first off, you want to look at, get a good advisor or give us a call and go through this a little bit more in depth. But just to answer your questions, you want to look at those, and by the way, great questions to ask because most people would not have asked those 3. They'd probably ask 1 or 2 of them, but not all 3. So first off, how to avoid taxes on these investments. So because it's an IRA, you're not a spouse, how it works is you typically have 10 years to take out those investments over that 10-year period. Now, each year you take a distribution from the IRA, whether it was your IRA or her IRA, it's not going to make much of a difference, right? Meaning it's all tax deferred, meaning none of that money has been taxed yet. So you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Now, one of the best ways to do it probably wouldn't be to take it out all in 1 year, because if you took out, let's say you make $100,000 and you took out the $125,000, that $125,000 is now taxed at ordinary income, right? So on paper, you would have made, $225,000, which would probably bump you into a much higher tax bracket than you might have the stomach for, right? So taking distributions out over a period of time is probably the better way to do it. Might be over 3 years, might be over 7 years, or over the 10, just depending on what your income level is. And that's something we could help you with and kind of go through there and give you some advice on that. The second question is, should you merge it with one of your existing accounts or keep it separate? I would recommend keeping it separate, right? So that becomes what's called a beneficiary IRA or an inherited IRA, and that will allow you to now have that 10 years to have the time to work with it. You never want to commingle IRAs with other account types because that could be a taxable event. Question 3, I would say, what's the best way to invest it? That really depends on your situation, right? So what I would recommend is we can go through each of these 3 questions and get a feel for what it is you're trying to do. Are you investing it over the 3 years, the 5 years, the 10-year time frame? And then we could pick some appropriate investments based off your risk tolerance and your overall goal and help plug all of that into your financial plan.
These questions that folks give you every week on the show, represent a really good opportunity to get some new folks together. And I know that you mentioned before we went on the air today that you've been really busy lately, and it's a good kind of busy because a lot of things going on in your office, a lot of new folks you're meeting, and a lot of new folks you're helping. I know that's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always great meeting with people out there that have listened to the YouTube channel, the radio show, the podcast. And a lot of people out there have been giving us some great comments back about, they like the show or it's helped them do this or whatnot, right? And we always appreciate that. And we're always here for any of you guys out there that are getting close to retirement or even just in general have some financial questions about your situation to see if our firm can bring any value to you and your family. We're always here. And like you said, Ron, we always enjoy answering all of these great questions each week.
Well, if you would like to maybe ask a question of Logan, or better yet, have a discovery visit, call 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back, and then you can arrange to have a convenient time to get together, either via Zoom or maybe in one of the convenient offices, Hemet or Redlands. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. It's a no-cost conversation, no obligation conversation. It's called a discovery visit. Logan Sadler has them all the time, and it's a great way to meet new folks. And after that conversation is over, you can walk away and, hey, you don't have to ever be heard from again, but you will learn a lot. You will get a lot of wisdom. You'll get a good assessment of where you are and the things that you need to be thinking about. We hope that you will do this, and then you can move on to longer conversations about your situation. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. Logan, as always, it has been a lot of fun being with you today. You answered a lot of good questions, and you certainly gave us all some food for thought.
Well, yeah, we appreciate it, Ron, and thank you for being here as well. And thank you to each listeners out there, and we look forward to being back here next week with another show.
Join us again next time for the next edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regary Financial.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.